Welcome to Still Speak. This is episode 10 of my Summerwells series. If you've not seen the last 9 episodes, pause here, go give those a listen, and come back so you can better follow along in this one. This will be the last episode of the series. As I spent, time collecting my thoughts and recording these and putting these out, more and more rumors have taken place. And if I've covered all of them, this would be an easy 100-episode series, no lie. So I'm going to wrap it up for now until more actual facts are known, or if summer's found, or if somebody is arrested, or something comes up I feel is worthy of discussing. I did notice that 3 episodes of the series got thumbs down, and I'm a new channel, and I knew I was walking into the lion's den coming into this case to discuss it 2 months in. Sometimes people feel like you're stepping on toes of the people who have been discussing the case publicly or on their platforms. They don't like that. Then you have people who, of course, probably really like Chris from the interview room. They maybe didn't like that, I was discussing him. Maybe they're just people who don't like my style. Maybe it's people who do believe the parents are guilty and feel that I'm, defending, excusing, justifying, or sympathizing with them. I'm not sure, but it's expected. I know many people don't, view these cases or come into these cases with much caution or some reserve, and, I definitely expected to see that, and that's okay. So, in this episode, I'm going to be wrapping up my thoughts on Candace and Dawn, and in addition, we're going to go off possible theories, and we're going to go into how I view each of those possible theories. We're going to start with Dawn's criminal past. This is obviously in addition to the story with his stepsister. The next little bit is going to be tough stuff to talk about, but needs to be discussed. So, Don has been convicted of multiple violent felonies, and he did serve prison time for convictions involving drugs and robbery in Arkansas, Utah, and Texas in the late 1990s and early 2000s. He was also cited for numerous parole violations. We have to keep in mind that it is 2021, so much of this took place roughly 15 years ago or more, and was before the 4 kids were born that he had with Candace. He has third-degree felonies for theft, robbery, forgery, a second-degree felony for theft by receiving stolen property, and a misdemeanor for suspension. So, yikes. Don has been asked about his criminal history. Now, he replied, he found God in prison and started to study the Bible intently as he wanted to change, and he's also said that it's in the past and he wants to leave it there. It's common for prisoners to find God in prison. Some actually do and some don't. Some change and some don't. So, and, that's possible. I don't know. And him saying it's in the past and he wants to leave it there, well, that could just be that he doesn't like being on the spot about his past, or maybe he just really wants to leave it there, that he really has changed and just would rather not even just go there or discuss it. I don't know, but if you recall, I mentioned he was arrested again in October 2020 after Candace accused him of domestic assault after a night where a few adults had been drinking, but she dropped that a week later, and the court records show that it was dropped and that the two appeared to have reconciled. Now, Don had said that Candace apologized to him for this, and the situation was a miscommunication because it appears that he may have thought that Candace was having an affair with someone who was at the home that night named Jose. Don has an older son, 34 years old, who was convicted of a child sex crime. He pled guilty in Arkansas in 2007 to sexual indecency with a child. When Don was asked about this, he said his son's Arkansas offense would have been considered statutory rape in Tennessee because his son was 19 at the time and the victim was a girlfriend who was 18 months younger. He does not live at or near their Tennessee property, according to investigators. Now, let's discuss Candace. Candace has 2 older children who are adults now that she did not raise. She does have a criminal record in the state of Wisconsin. Most recent was a guilty plea on misdemeanor domestic abuse charges in 2003. 2003 is now, 18 years ago, and at the time her children were 2 years and the other one was 6 months old. Information recently came out from a YouTube channel, and I'll say the name so you can go and like the channel and subscribe to her. It's called J's for Justice. So J is for Justice. And Jay got in contact with a foster mom who took in Candace's daughter, whose name is also Candace. So there's 3 Candaces in the story. Grandma Candy, then Candace, then Candace's daughter, Candace. But she took her daughter in, Candace, when she was 16 years old, and apparently she shared some information, and I mean, you can take what you want from it. Much of it's hearsay and speculation, since the children were minors at the time, so there's no confirmation of what actually happened, but this is what was claimed. The father of the children has a lengthy criminal history, which includes a lot of domestic abuse charges, and it was said that Candace was young and on drugs at the time, and had these kids with him, and that he was much older at the time. In addition, he was married when she had the children with him, and she was 19 years old and he was 41. He's now in his 60s, and he has continued over the years to add to his criminal history. It seems like Candace likes older men because she's 39 and Don is 56, so that's a 17-year difference, and it was a 22-year difference with the father of her first 2 children. It was said that her son has a severe brain injury that resulted in him having to live in a long-term facility, which is horrific. It was then claimed, which keep in mind would be third party or even 4 or 5 parties deep, that he was hit in the head with, brace yourselves, a baseball bat, but that is not confirmed. He was 2 at the time, and a baseball bat to the head at 2 by an adult, I would think would be deadly. If not, he would be hospitalized, clinging to life for a long time, but I'm not a doctor, and this is also if the baseball bat was involved. There's no confirmation of that. What we do know is that the children were taken after a domestic situation in which the charges mentioned that Candace at some point, for some reason, pointed a gun or pulled a gun on somebody in the home, and many have speculated that it was her that harmed the boy, her son, but the gun being mentioned makes me think there's a possibility that the father, who had a history of abuse, may have done such, and that maybe, I don't know, Candace pulled a gun on him after this absolutely mouth-dropping situation or claim of a baseball bat to a 2-year-old's head. Again, none of this is really confirmed, besides the fact that they were removed from the home, and because they were minors at the time, the information is redacted. Candace did do 9 months around this time on a few charges, and this also tells me it was possibly not her who harmed the son, because 9 months for taking a baseball bat to the head of a 2-year-old and possibly drawing a gun to a 2-year-old, if that's what happened, 9 months just doesn't sound correct for something as horrifying as that. 9 months for pulling a gun or something to that nature makes more sense to me. That being said, she was on drugs at the time, so of course there's that lingering possibility, but we don't know. Now, let me say, after the children were taken, they were adopted out almost immediately and ended up being abused by their adoptive parents as well, which is just heartbreaking. I'm not sure, or nobody's really sure, that if the son's brain injury happened during the domestic situation involving Candace and the father of the kids, or when he went to that second home. None of us can really know that, but then it was said that the son went on to a facility at some point because he cannot care for himself due to this brain injury, and the daughter went from foster home to foster home for much of her life. this should go without saying that my heart goes out to them. It's extremely tragic. Now, not in defense of Candace, but to kind of just throw it out there, there is the possibility it wasn't her that harmed the child, that it was the father. I'm not going to accuse either without, obviously concrete, factual information. That being said, if Candace was young and on drugs and with an abusive married man, it could be, and I'm throwing a bone out here, that she didn't fight for the kids and allow them to be adopted out because she knew that she couldn't provide for them, or that her current situation was not one that was good for children. She didn't have any real way of predicting or knowing that they would go on to also be abused in their adoptive home. I would like to think that she made the decision to not fight for them so they can have a better life, right? I want to believe that. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I want to believe. And she could have never known that they wouldn't be safe in another home. Because I'm cautious with information and I give pause to all of this, because it was then said that the daughter reached out to Candace and that Candace didn't want to speak to her. That could be the case. Maybe Candace didn't want to face her. Maybe she felt guilty because she went on to have other kids. Maybe she was told that she was never allowed to contact the kids and she just kind of stuck to that. Maybe because it's in the past and she didn't want to go down that road, or maybe, it's just that she straight up completely detached herself from them and heartlessly denied speaking with her. I don't know. However, though, it was then said that Grandma Candy would show up to a bakery that the daughter Candace worked at all the time, and that the daughter was, I guess, bothered or felt uncomfortable or awkward with her showing up, like, hey, I'm your grandma, right? So I take these two things and my brain goes, well, if she wanted to talk to her mother, right, and her mother didn't want to speak to her, then why would she be bothered by grandma wanting to speak with her or just to see her? I would think if she wanted to know about her blood roots, right, that she would be glad to speak with the grandmother. But I've never been in her situation, so obviously I can't say. But the next closest thing to her mother is her grandmother, so I don't know. But it gave me pause to consider that, much of this information may be partially accurate or somewhat accurate and not entirely accurate. I don't know. We know there's an altercation. We don't know who did what. We do know that the kids were taken. That is a fact, and it's a fact that she didn't fight for them. Obviously, all of this is hard to even discuss, but it goes back to when I said that there may be deep, deep generational issues within both in Candace's past that led them to these criminal lives, losing children, charges, jail time, etc., and that they could be products of their environment. It doesn't excuse it, but it could give us an explanation. And there are other family members like Candace's uncle, which is her mother's brother, located in another state, who are less than savory type of people and have also done terrible things. Candace's history was in 2003, her oldest boy out of 3 with Don will be 13 soon, so she had him about 5 years later, so that is enough time to, get clean and possibly change her route in life. Did she change in a full 180 degree difference? Obviously not. Does it connect to Summer missing? Well, I would say that this is more connected than Don's criminal history or the story with his stepsister and Don. Because this does involve 2 of her children, and it wasn't as long ago as most of Don's history or the situation with his stepsister. Do I think it's possible that Candace harmed her daughter? Good question. I do think people can change. I've seen some change. I've seen others change, but not fully. I'd like to think that she wouldn't after already losing her first 2 children. That I would hope that she did change. I mean, she did go on to move states supposedly got clean and married Don, and then had 1 kid, then 2 kids, then 3 kids, then 4 kids. So I'm not sure. And it's not my place to slaughter Don and Candace with words. It's just not. I don't know who they are today. I don't know them, and neither does anybody else. We have a pretty good idea, but much of it is based on, old information, observations, or what we hear from them. I do, though, have great sympathy for all of Candace's children. The oldest due to his brain injury and having to live in a facility, the fact that he was abused again by an adoptive family, the daughter being abused by that second family, and then having to go foster care, home to home, and, deepening that generational issue in the family. I feel for Summer, who's missing for 2.5 months, is likely deceased. I feel for the 3 boys who not only lost their sister, but does not know their older siblings and have been removed during this awful situation of their sister being missing and leaving their home. And lastly, because the boys are all separated from each other. So all these children under Candace's care at some point have suffered greatly. That's undeniable. They did not ask for any of this. They did not get to pick who their parents were, and they did not get to pick their living circumstances. So it's terrible. It's unimaginable, the amount of damage that's been caused, and I want to believe that even Candace and Don recognize that this will cause deep emotional and mental trauma for many years to come for all these kids. It's really tragic. Now that we cover that, I know all this added up is part of why, people are pointing fingers at them, or they believe they are the cause of why Summer is missing. There are other reasons people jump to that, but I do recognize that this information does add to their suspicion. We have to keep that information in mind as we, now discuss theories and see if any of it can be applied to the disappearance of Summer. Excuse my dog. Dogs, what you gonna do? See? I don't even know what he's barking at. I talked about in another episode that my dog barks at anything. I literally don't have a single clue what he's barking at right now. He's sitting in the garage with me. Nothing is happening. Goodness. So anyway, you recall I said twice now that Candace is very, very well aware that CPS and police work hand in hand with each other, and I now told you why she knows that. So a theory, like I said, that involves Candace either harming her or it was some neglectful, accidental death that she covered up. The fact she called the police, both of them did. But the people who think it was covered up out of the fear of CPS, it doesn't add up to me. She called the police. If she hadn't, then we'd be having a different conversation. Like if she reported her missing much later. And the police came, and what happened? CPS got involved, and the boys got removed. Candace knows how it works. She knows the system. People who have criminal history know the system. So, a theory that involves, hiding a death due to CPS just doesn't fit for me. Now, a theory that involves just her covering up her death, whether accidental or intentional, where she didn't cover it up because of fear of CPS, could be plausible. But this would mean that someone out of the 4 other people in the home, Grandma and the boys, are aware of such. She could have only, walked or run with her dead daughter off the property, or taken Grandma's car or Don's work truck, if the keys were even there, and drive her maybe 5-10 miles away and put her on the side of the road, not buried. And I say not buried because digging a hole takes time. If you say Grandma knows, then that means the boys did not see their mother or hear her or didn't notice that she was gone for a long period of time. Again, the driveway is gravel. It makes a ton of noise. If Grandma doesn't know, and it's the boys or one of the 4 that knows, then due to their ages and now being separated from not only their parents but each other, I believe they would have cracked and let it be known that it did not go as it has been claimed. I do not believe that it is possible that all 5 of them know and all are in cahoots, keeping the exact same story for 2.5 months. I also do not believe that no one else on the property would have known, and that it was only Candace who knows. Someone out of the 4 had to know or be involved in this theory. Taking that theory further, accidents can happen for sure when a child is not in the presence of an adult or someone for a while, but it would need to be something that would, cause almost immediate death or no great length of time of suffering. If you go with Candace being guilty and covering it up and it was all intentional, then we have to ask what she could have done, meaning Summer or Candace have done, that caused her daughter's death that the boys upstairs or grandma 20 to 30 feet away did not hear. I mean, if she was beating her, I'm pretty sure Summer would have been crying due to the pain, and one of the 4 people would have heard this happening. I do. So, I mean, it's plausible, but their home is like 780 square feet, I think I read, and I think someone would have heard it. I do. Whether it was hearing her hitting her or her crying. I mean, how else is she going to hurt her? I mean, I guess she could have smothered her. Nobody would have heard that. But then ask yourself, why did she go from planting flowers to all of a sudden she's smothering her daughter on the fly? I don't know. I mean, we can keep it on the table, but that just seems, that's not what happened here, but I don't know. Now, a theory involving Dawn is far less, in my opinion, believable than that, but not impossible. I mean, we did a theory in another episode of Dawn leaving work that day to, for whatever reason, kidnap and harm or sell his daughter and then, return to work. And I said, coworkers have said he was at work. We don't know what they told the cops. He claims he saw multiple coworkers and his boss that day. And we talked about if he returned to the home after they got home that day, meaning Summer, Grandma Candy, and Candace, at, let's say, 3:30, he drives, 30 minutes. It's now like 4 p.m.-ish. He kidnaps her. He somehow knew she was going to be alone in the basement. And I say this because her youngest brother, who's 9, sleeps down there too. So it's likely he has toys down there. And how would Don know that he was not down there with Summer? But let's say he did. And then he sat up on the property and hid on his own property, and then he snatched her, took her, and either killed her or handed her off to sell to somebody. That adds another 30 to 45 minutes, depending, and then drive back, another 30 to 40 minutes, depending on his speed. So now we're looking at about 5:30, 5:45. And then, he immediately gets the call that she's gone. He collects his tools and leaves. I mean, wouldn't that be completely alarming to coworkers that he left for 2 hours or such, and when he returned, he immediately left because his daughter's missing? Now, taking that further, if they told police he left, even if it was 20 minutes to, go buy smokes or something, the police would have cornered Don with this information and applied unbelievable pressure to find out why is it the day his daughter went missing, he left the job site for any amount of time. So I do believe the co-workers confirmed to police that he was at work. I don't know that for a fact, but I do believe that because I know that cops would have taken that information and grilled the hell out of Dawn. If we discuss he did this to sell her, which, it does happen, he didn't have to stage an abduction, or to abduct her from his own property. It's his daughter. He could have just said, Hey, Candace, I'm taking Summer to Walmart, and then we're going to stop at the playground, and then, call Candace from the playground or the police and say, Summer disappeared from it. I looked away for 2 seconds, and poof, she was gone. But, instead he took her to sell her to someone. Many playgrounds don't have cameras. Selling her ups the risk of being caught because it involves more than one person, and then I need to ask myself, if he sold her for money, where's the money? Where is it? You don't think cops would have noticed a big lump sum of money, in their home or in their account? He wouldn't have made off with $100 only. If he sold her for drugs, it wouldn't be like a dime bag. It'd be a lot of drugs. So where are the drugs then? Where is he hiding them? Because cops have been all up on their property. Where's the drugs? So where's the money or where's the drugs? Depending on what you think he sold her for, money or drugs. And the idea that he would hide on his own property to take her in the middle of the day rather than doing like what I just said seems kind of ridiculous. Now, it's his property, right? So he knows that she plays down there, and he knows her swing and the terrain, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, okay, we can keep it on the list, but then we have to believe his coworkers are helping him by lying. And what would be their motive? Why would they do that? That doesn't make much sense. Some think he never even went to work that day, but again, coworkers. It's just not fitting. It's not fitting. We need more information. This theory is just not making any sense. Now, if Candace and Don were in some master plan to sell her, they could have met up with him in between dropping off Grandma to the ER and then, when they picked up Hunter, or they would have never even picked up Hunter. Let's use the playground thing again. Candace could have told her mother she was taking Summer to a playground while she was at the ER. And then she could have called the cops, from the playground claiming that she vanished. Or, she looked away and she just, poof, gone. Right? But instead it was really that she handed her off to Don, who Don then took her to go someplace to sell her. I just don't know why if they were in it together, why they would have to do it from the property. And I don't understand that whole concept or that theory that people are talking about. So, then we have, Dawn and Candace's criminal histories and, how they present themselves. They don't strike me as criminal masterminds. I mean, they've gotten caught in crimes many times. So, are they in cahoots on some master plan, and they're these amazing criminals who had this epic criminal planning? I mean, maybe. But damn, that would be a hell of a job they pulled off so far. Wow. So now a theory of Grandma Candy. Well, Grandma's in her 60s. I mean, I feel bad that people are even going after poor Grandma. She's got a missing daughter. She's got other grandchildren. She's got some in Tennessee, some in Wisconsin. She's got no criminal history. So what's the motive for Grandma to do anything to Summer or to cover up her death of her granddaughter where her own daughter wouldn't even have known that she did something? I mean, she, too, would have had to walk off with Summer's dead body, but remember, she's got the bad knee, or she would have had to, drive off the property, which at minimum, Candace would have known about. So I think Grandma's off the table as far as being the main suspect or only suspect. Can we please leave Grandma alone? This poor Grandma. Goodness. Now, a theory involving Hunter, well, like I said, doesn't necessarily need to have been directly involved, but a possible connection to someone he got himself wrapped up with, which teens often do get themselves caught up with bad people. That does happen. Now, that does involve more than one party, which I said multiple times means it ups the risk of being caught. However, he's young, right? And Dawn is much older and experienced when it comes to crime. I believe Dawn would be more cautious or aware, or even Candace for that matter, to involve more than one party. They're experienced with crime, right? So they know they have to be careful. Who knows what happened? So, again, maybe, possibly, this is just speculation, nothing more, not accusing, just saying it's possible. Now, the Wells seem to have a lot of issues with a lot of people, whether it was their fault or the other people's fault. But we have had mention of an old drunk man sleeping in their shed. We have information about a man who purchased property that was connected to theirs, who was there until the 15th and left pissed off and then, changed his appearance and left. We know there was a falling out with Hunter's mom, Allie, and Candace. Allie's mother, Hunter's grandma, did not seem to care for Candace. There's been mention of shady characters from their church. There's also something that was said from Dawn in particular. about a guy that he had to fire the day prior to Summer going missing. And according to Don, this was due to the man being on like some crazy drugs. He caused a ton of issues, and Don fired him, and he thinks this man could be seeking revenge on him because he's claimed that he's super pissed off and wanted to come after him. People were annoyed that Don brought this guy up or said that he was deflecting, but I mean, if he did have issues with this guy for a period of time and fired him, I mean, depending on the level of anger or resentment and his feeling of revenge, it's plausible, and even more so since the man had been to the property and knows the layout. You know, then add in all the sex offenders that live close to their area. So there's a lot of people involved here. And these poor cops have to dig through all these people that they've had issues with or had contact with them or has been to the property, and they have to try to decipher and weed out these people. It's probably a freaking headache. As far as we know, update weeks ago, no one's been ruled out. So I would say, you know, many of these people can be persons of interest so far. We don't know. Let's go to an abduction by a stranger or random person in the area. It's not far-fetched, you know, it's a crime of opportunity. It does happen. They see a kid, they seek the chance, and they seize the child. In this case, I don't think it's plausible due to the location of the property and the fact that the home sits back from the road. This would mean Summer, by bad luck, would have wandered off the property to one of the roads, and just by chance, some evil, horrible person saw her and took her. So that would basically involve both wandering and being abducted. Yeah, that just doesn't fit. A stranger pulling into the driveway, well, nah, that would have been heard or seen. It's a really rough terrain, high-hilled driveway to get up, and he would have needed to drive up there and just happen to stumble upon Summer by chance. So, nah, it wasn't a stranger. However, an abduction by someone acquainted or close to the family at one time in some way, or the property, absolutely. I think there's a great possibility that somebody nearby or someone who has either stayed on the property before or knew of the family took Summer. Someone who was aware of their patterns and behaviors and the property, or all of those things. There's a lot of places for someone to have sat to watch for a period of time prior to that day or on that day. We discussed the cove. That is, if you walk out the basement door to the left, it's definitely big enough for an adult to fit in. And I mentioned a shed that you can see directly behind Summer on her swing that has a window directly looking at her swing. I mentioned an abandoned bus on the property, a large generator. Then there's high brush in the woods, and there being a ton of junk on the property. So the school bus is the perfect spot to hide in, or even behind. The wheels on the bus are large, and you can easily hide behind it, and without thoroughly looking in that area that is surrounded by abandoned cars and junk, you would never see the person. You wouldn't. It's there. He would blend right in. The legs of the person would blend right in. They could have been crouched down behind the large generator, or they even could have been laying down on the hill that leads to the creek and road, and they just laid at the top to watch the land. Kind of like an army stance on the ground. They could have easily escaped with her in several different directions and been gone and out of sight before anyone knew a damn thing. There are also what appears to be abandoned sheds or condemned-looking homes around their property that they don't necessarily own. And sometimes when a child's abducted, the abductor will stop to kind of, collect themselves, right? Like, They made it away with the child. They take like a 5-minute break to kind of collect themselves and restrain the child or what have you before they move on to another location. We could consider that the person got out of sight with her and maybe was able to gain access to one of those abandoned sheds or buildings and held her there for a short period of time before then leaving the area entirely, or they left the area immediately. This person most certainly knew this family in some way. It does not need to be someone significantly close to the family. It's more believable that this person would take a risk of being seen than it is that Candace would take her dead daughter and walk off the property with her. And here's why. Her neighbors know her and would recognize her, rather than they would recognize a stranger. A stranger, if caught, would just drop Summer and take off, before anybody can ID them, and run to wherever they were going to take Summer, whether it's a car or a building or whatever, and be gone before cops even arrive. Now, if Candace is walking off or running off with her dead daughter on the property and a neighbor sees her, well, guess what? She can be ID'd. They know who she is and they know where she lives. Right? She can't just drop her and be like, oopsie, and that's it. So it's more believable that somebody would, take that risk of being seen rather than Candace or Grandma or even the boys. Because, yes, people have even considered the boys harmed Summer and somehow covered it up, which I can't get on board with that, guys. I can't. So, to sum this up, I'll say, one, the most believable thus far is abduction by some sort of acquaintance or somebody close to the family who knew the family in some way. Two, taken by an acquaintance who wanted to seek revenge on them or had their eyes on Summer for a long time and finally, took the opportunity to do such. Or three, I would say maybe Candace is involved. But I believe more than one would then know, because it's just not possible to me that none of the four would have noticed her gone for a long period of time. So I have a little bit of a clause there. And four would be Don, and I'm even hesitating putting him on the list. But if I had to rank it, that's how I would list it. Now, I could be wrong. I don't have access to case files, and I don't know what evidence, if any, even exists. On that note, I'm standing in hope and prayer that Summer is found soon and the case can be resolved. And I obviously hope she's safe. But I'm hoping that she's found regardless. Until more information or facts come out, this is all I'm going to say about the Summerwells case for now. If there's progression in the case or someone's arrested, we will do a breakdown of what I said in these 10 episodes versus what the evidence showed and what actually happened. If you have a case that you want me to cover, please email me at stillspeakpod@gmail.com. I do have a few stories that I did want to bring to you. There's some are like semi-solved and some are not solved. Some are a bit of a mystery and just have to pick which one. But if you have more stories that you want to see covered that don't get enough, coverage, please email me. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All the links are in the channel description. Please like this video and subscribe. I'll be posting more missing people in the next few days, and I'll provide any updates on the missing people I have shared so far. And my dog is saying goodbye to you. So until next time, thanks.